Good evening, everyone. Is everyone settled? Yeah, good. It's just gone 7 o'clock. I am Councillor Jones, and I will chair tonight's subcommittee for this meeting. I would like to introduce the members of the subcommittee. To my immediate right is Councillor Stone, and my far right is Councillor Sheridan. Also in attendance are the legal advisor, Adam Ruleski. Licensing officers are Elizabeth Cox and Laura Manning, and the clerk for tonight's meeting is Charlotte Raper. Item 1 on the agenda are apologies for absence. Charlotte, are there any apologies, please?
None, Chair.
Right, thank you. Item 2 on the agenda concerns urgent business. I have not been advised of any items of urgent business. However, I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be recorded for publication on the Council's website and will normally be available within 3 working days of this meeting. I would also like to advise anyone that they've got their phones on, could you please turn them off or put them on flight mode, please? Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Can I invite members of the subcommittee to declare any interest they may have? No? Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda, determination of an application for a review of a premises licence. Do any of the parties have any request, in particular, permission for another person to appear other than specified in the advance notice for permission to cross-examine or any other requests? No? Okay, thank you. I would now like to ask the licensing officer to present the factual report. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for the variation of the premises licence at the Bull Public House situated on Dock Road in Grays. Representations were received from 4 other persons in relation to the prevention of public nuisance. Just to add to the apologies, 3 of the residents did send their apologies today that they were on holiday and were unable to attend. The recommendations after this are that the subcommittee could either grant the application as applied for, subject to the conditions arising out of the operating schedule and the mandatory conditions, grant the applications with amendments to licensable activities and or hours applied for or to the parts of the premises to which they relate, add any condition necessary for the promotion of one or more of licensing objectives, or refuse the application. Just as an introduction, on the 11th of July of this year, the application was received from Chi Johnson to vary the premises licence for the Bull Public House by adding an outside bar to the premises plans. A copy of the application is attached as Appendix 1, which is at page 11 of the reports pack, and a plan of the premises is attached as Appendix 2 at page 21. If anyone is unfamiliar with the location, I forgot to put the map into the reports bundle, but I do have copies of Google Maps here showing the location of it if anyone is unsure. The application is to bring the plans up to date by including the additional outside seating area and an additional outside bar and kitchen which has already been constructed. There is no change to the times on the existing premises licence. A copy of the premises licence is attached as Appendix 3, which is at page 23. The current conditions from the premises licence are to remain, which can be found on pages 27 to 33 as part of the premises licence. In addition, the following conditions would be added to the licence based on the applicant's operating schedule in the application. The outside bar area and kitchen must only be used when the outside seating area is being used. No external speakers are to be used, and the use of the outside area is to cease at 2300 hours. All customers must relocate inside the premises, the pub area, if they wish to continue drinking at 2300 hours. Under the Licensing Act 2003, the licensing objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance and the protection of children from harm. Any representations received must relate to a particular premises and must be relevant to the promotion of one or more of the 4 licensing objectives. During the consultation period, 4 representations from local residents were received. These representations relate to the licensing objective of the prevention of public nuisance, particularly the impact the increased use of the outdoor areas has already had. A copy of these representations are attached at Appendix 4, which is at page 41 of the bundle. No representations were received from any other person, and no representations were received from any of the responsible authorities. After the consultation period had ended, a routine visit by Thurrock Council, licensing officers and Essex Police found the outside bar was already set up with alcohol prominently displayed. Photographs were attached as Appendix 5. Unfortunately, they did not print well. I do have copies of those if anybody wants to see them. And a member of staff informed officers that the bar had been in use, but he'd been instructed to close it at 21:30. So copies of the photographs are available. In determining this application for the variation of the premises licence, this subcommittee should have regard to the Council's Statement of Licensing Policy, particularly Section 5.0, and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. Where relevant representations are made, the authority must, having regard to the representations, take such of the steps mentioned below, if any, as it considers necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives. I won't read out the steps at 3.7 because they're a repeat of what was said at the beginning. The subcommittee are advised that the heating is of a quasi-judicial nature and representations from all parties, both written and verbal, will form part of matters that are to be considered. Findings of issues on fact should be on the balance of probability. The subcommittee are advised that the final decision should be based on the individual merits of the application and findings of fact made at this hearing. The application must be determined within 5 working days of the conclusion of this hearing in accordance with paragraph 26 of the Licensing Act 2003 Hearings Regulations 2005. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Liz. I must apologise. I forgot to say Chima is another legal advisor. And also, would you mind just letting us know who you are, please?
Good evening. My name is Stuart Gibson, the licence agent representing the applicants to my right.
Yep. I'm Chi Johnson, co-owner with Glen Money. I'm the licensee at the pub.
Thank you very much. Do members have any questions of the licensing officer?
One, Chair.
Councillor Stone.
Page 6, 3.4, you've alluded to, after the consultation period, a routine visit was conducted by Thurrock Council, that the outside bar was already set up with alcohol prominently displayed. Member of staff informed the officer that the bar had been in use but instructed to be closed. Was that licensed to be used at that time?
No, Chair, it wasn't because it was pending this hearing, so it wasn't licensed at that point.
Thank you.
Liz, I just wondered, could you clarify if we look at our, shall we say, our agenda on various pages, we've got, regards to live music, we've got page 6, 14, 17, 33, and I'd like to know where we stand as far as live music is concerned, being played in the garden area, because some of it says that basically the music should be contained within the pub and possibly just a speaker being placed in an area that can put music out, but there's live music that's gone out. So where do we stand on that one, please?
Yes, obviously this application is just determining the use of the outside bar under the Live Music Act 2012. Let's go with that one. The performance of live music was largely deregulated in smaller capacity venues, obviously to encourage it. So at this point, they don't need a licence to have the live music outside. It doesn't need to be included on their premises licence. So in terms, I think they have been, I think they have had live music and singers and that outside, but that isn't in question with this application. It's not covered under this because it falls under the deregulations that are sort of now in place.
And Liz, does that go for, like the ballparks or bouncy castles and things like that? How does that stand? And also, is there supposed to be someone there that safeguards the children? It's been said that children are left running around and, there's no one there supervising.
In terms of things like bouncy castles and children, that is entirely unlicensable from our perspective, so that wouldn't be covered by the premises licence. In terms of the behaviour of children or any patrons on a premises, that would come down to the management policies and at their discretion.
Okay, can I just clarify, we've got no residents at all tonight?
One had informed me that she would be trying to attend, but up until 7 o'clock she hadn't managed to get here. So.
Okay, thank you. Well, that means no residents can ask questions. So does the applicant have any questions of the licensing officer, please?
No, Chair.
None at all? Okay, thank you. Well, the residents are not here, so that goes down. I would now like to ask the applicant to present their case, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. As I said, my name is Stuart Gibson, representing the applicants to my right. In my brief submission this evening, you will hear that what we are here to talk about is an extension to the existing licence, a variation to the existing licence, to include an outside bar. That's what we're here to talk about this evening. Basically, to allow customers to be served outside when the weather is agreeable, to save them having to walk back into the pub, queue up with people already inside, add extra pressure to the inside bar staff, allow them to very quickly get a drink from the bar area and come back and sit down. The fact that people are sat outside is already covered by the fact the premises does already have off sales, and so the beer garden is functional whether there's an outside bar or not. The application also speaks about the food in the kitchen area, which is not licensable because that doesn't extend beyond 2300 hours, so it doesn't fall into the late night refreshment. And also to note, as has been mentioned to you already, there is absolutely no change to the hours of any of the licensable activities that we're seeking. Very important to note this because, as I said, the variation is to add an outside bar. So what issues are that going to bring in terms of the 4 licensing objectives? Well, my submission is that the current conditions on the licence already cater for the current situation. As I said, all we're asking for is the facility or the ability to sell alcohol to customers from a small outside bar. Nothing else changes within the business. It is quite clear that we've mentioned the area is to cease trading at 2300 hours. And the current conditions provide for that. The current condition on the licence number 4 says all doors and windows must be kept closed after 2300 except to allow access and egress. So as it stands now, windows are allowed and doors are allowed to be open up until 11 o'clock at night. What we're doing is keeping with that, is saying after 11 o'clock, when the current conditions say the doors and windows of the premises should be shut, then all customers are in from outside. And as was mentioned, if they wish to carry on their evening, as the premises is licensed up until midnight, they must do so from inside the pub, contained within the pub, with the doors and windows closed. So there is no external noise after 11 o'clock in any event. Current condition 12 goes on to say that no live music will be played within the new extension area due to the proximity of residential properties. Live music has been permitted from within the existing licence area of the building. We don't propose to change that. On the odd occasion that live music is played in the evenings, it will be from inside the main pub area. There is no change. It talks about recorded music within the new extension area to be played through limited surround sound systems. Which are permitted at agreed levels up to 2300, agreed levels with the environmental health. After 2300, the volume of the music in this extension area will be reduced to agreed background levels to reduce the risk of intrusion on nearby neighbouring properties. So all of these things are currently in place, and nothing of that is we were asking for any of that to change. So there's no change in terms of the music side of things. We're not asking to put speakers outside to amplify the music. That's not what the application is all about. I won't go through condition 14, but that talks about an installation of a sound level monitor system in conjunction with the EHO, and saying the premises must work closely with environmental health officers to set those levels and maintain those levels. I would suggest that as the environmental health are not here today raising an objection of their own accord, then they are satisfied that this condition has been upheld since the premises started trading with these gentlemen from November of last year. So it's my view that ample conditions are already in place to combat any noise nuisance as currently trading. But none of this, by adding an external bar area, would put any of those licensing conditions at detriment. There's no change. Do we honestly believe that vast amounts of people are going to sit outside purely because there's an outside bar? No. People sit outside because the sun shines. That's fact of life. And whether they'd have to go back inside to get a drink or not, so be it. If the sun is shining, they will sit outside. All the business are trying to do is make it more convenient for their customers, allow them to obtain a drink quickly from an outside area, and also provide sort of waiter-waitress service to the tables to increase or enhance the experience of visiting the pub. So the conditions currently on the existing licence more than cater for the fact that we are asking for an outside bar. I laboured the point because I think it's important, because I have, as you have no doubt, read the letters of objection that have been submitted, and there's 4 quite extensive letters. But when you go back and say, well, what we're asking for is an outside bar area, how much of the objections relate to that? I would say, and in fact, I don't think I can find one part of an objection that relates to the fact we are looking to put an outside bar area. It seems that people have taken, the 4 people who have objected, we have a grievance with the pub, so we're going to throw the kitchen sink at it. We've thrown everything that we have a grievance about the pub, but it doesn't relate to what we're asking for this evening. And the only part that's up for discussion this evening is the variation to the licence, which is an outside bar. We're not here to discuss the existing licence. That would be something for residents, should they so wish in the future, to pursue down a review process, but this is not what we're here to do today. I'm not going to sit here and say everything has been wonderful. It's quite fair to say that leading up to this, there have been mistakes made by the business. Planning permission was granted the back end of May, late May of this year, for the extended bar area to be built and so forth. And the applicants to my side, mistakenly as it was, assumed that once that was granted, it was all systems go. They could begin and get things moving. They didn't connect 1 and 2 and say, we now need to apply for a licence variation. My understanding was it was after a routine licensing visit where that matter was pointed out to them, that they need a variation to the licence, that they immediately contacted myself to apply for the variation, and here we are tonight, because we've had objections. So once it was brought to their attention that things were not trading as they should be, they put it right, basically immediately. I think it's worth mentioning that there has been no responsible authority objection. As I said, there's very little in there that relates to what we're asking to, but if indeed the noise levels were such, and the noise levels were going to be such by the, or increased by the introduction of an outside bar, then quite definitely the environmental health officer would be here adding his weight to the objection. In terms of the particular evening in question where you alluded to in your questions, Chair, it is quite right. On this particular evening, the outside bar had been trading, but that particular evening was the end of the 28-day consultation period. Mr. Johnson, to my right, was on holiday. The member of staff running the business assumed that as the 28 days had been and gone, it was all systems go, we could carry on. Mistakenly, he was wrong, and it won't happen again quite clearly, and it hasn't happened since, once the problem was pointed out. This is merely an application to offer convenience to customers. We have customers sat outside in this premises. It's become a very popular venue. The gentlemen to my right have gone to great lengths and spent a lot of money in making this venue far better. I didn't see it. I've seen it now, but I haven't seen it before. But I'm reliably informed by many people that it is much improved from what it used to be. And by the fact that it is much improved, it attracts more people. More people wish to visit the venue. More people wish to use the venue. And the gentlemen to my right, I've been speaking to over a period of months now, are very keen to work with the local residents, to work with them to ensure that they don't cause undue problem. You've heard that there's been 4 letters of objection. You've seen 4 letters of objection. But it's also worth pointing out there are some 400-odd residents that potentially could be affected by this premises, and you've had 4 objections out of 400. It's worth taking into effect that 396 people think this is a great idea. Or they haven't objected. Poetic license, perhaps, but you know what I'm saying. So that is the application before you. Both myself and the gentleman to my right would be happy to answer any questions. We're not trying to say everything has been perfect. They accept that mistakes have been made. They're here to make sure that those mistakes don't happen in the future, and well aware that should you grant this licence this evening and they do not adhere to the conditions on the licence, they would be back here under the review process pretty quickly anyway. Thank you for your time, and happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. I must admit, you've definitely improved the area of the grounds. You know, you can see that, and I always feel that that's good with publicans that do that nowadays. As they say, there's 10 pubs closing. It's not an easy trade as to be in. So if you can bring measures that gives a better footfall into your premises, then you can only take your hat off to it. However, on the other side of the issue, you do have to work with your local community. And these people, as you said, there's only 4, but these 4 people, 3 of them, they've lived there for a fair amount of time. And as they said, they've lived with the other pub, with other landlords, and everything's been fine. So you must have due consideration for your residents, you know. So there's one or two questions that we will ask you, you know, that maybe you can implement as to make life a little bit easier there. Can I just clarify one thing, though? This bar, the usage of this bar, was you saying that you felt that you was using it lawfully? You under your normal terms, it was you felt that was okay, isn't it? When it was pointed out by the licensing authorities that you shouldn't be using it, is that what you were saying?
Yes, I've been a licensee for 23 years. Had multiple licences in the Thurrock area, and I've been out of the trade for about 5 years. My last premise was Henry's in Aveley. I had that for 9 years. Formerly the Queen's in Grays, I had that for 6 years. We had the Alsip Cock for 22 years, so we've had quite a lot of premises around the local area. Naivety on our behalf, I hold my hands up to it. We're not trying to hide anything. It's when we did the alterations and redecorated the pub, we were sort of, what's the best word of saying, running the gauntlet to try and get it open for Christmas. So we got it open. Elizabeth came and saw us and notified that we had to reapply for a licence because we'd done alterations to the bar and changed some of the toilets and things. So we automatically did that as soon as Elizabeth asked us to. Again, the same thing with the garden. Perhaps it's my experience was when you license the premises, you license the premises in the olden days. I don't know if this is so the whole site was licensed, so you didn't have to keep reapplying for different variations all the time. So I don't know how recently that's come into play, but hence why we're sitting here again, because we had applied for planning permission, we got planning permission on the site, and we just commenced work. I hold my hands up to it. I'm not trying to hide from the fact we just thought it was licensed, the premises was licensed, so we just started trading. So I'm not trying to. Elizabeth came and told us we weren't licensed, so we ceased trading. We've reapplied. We instructed Stuart to act on our behalf, and we've come down here. I mean, we're not trying to. We've spent an awful lot of money. Me and my young friend here. He's actually older than me, but I have to say that. And we're there for the long term. We're not here to upset anyone. Everything we're trying to put in place, we've got the sound monitors in, we've put soundproofing in. We have had phone calls from the residents, and I'm not saying we haven't, but they phone me up. The first thing I do, I go out in the car park, I have a wander around. We kept records for 2 months, 3 months, by instruction from the environmental health for sound monitoring. I can't remember, what is it, 93, whatever it was, the decibels. Every Friday and Saturday night, if you walked around the pub in the rain, there's me and Glenn walking around with a sound monitor, keep trying to take records of it. We put the monitor in place, and then, as far as we were concerned, that ceased. We are still waiting for the environmental health to come and set the levels. We've been waiting for a couple of months now, and I'm not trying to point the fingers back at them. They're busy, we've been busy. Every time the guys come, I was on holiday the last time. So we are still trying to rectify. That is one thing that's to be finished off. But we are currently in the process of re-insulating the back area that we extended on the pub with a permanent structure now, aren't we, and a roof to try and rectify that. The thing with every new business that you come into, like I say, I've had quite a lot of pubs over the years. As you make mistakes, you have to try and rectify them. And that's what we've tried to do. We're not trying to cause any problems. The soundproofing thing we've done to the levels that we thought were right. We've been guided by different people we've employed. Some have worked, some haven't. The ones that haven't, we're slowly, as we accumulate the finances to do it, we rectify the business. And this is what we're doing. We've got the money now from the summer, so we're going to soundproof the back, put some insulated curtains across the back part. Hopefully that works. That's what we're trying to get to. And then if it doesn't, then we just keep going on. We're not going to just ignore it and put our head in the sand and just keep playing the music. We're actually licensed till 12:30, I believe. We actually always shut the pub at 12 every Friday and Saturday night. The pub is cleared at 12 o'clock. We don't go to the full extent of our licence because of the residents. So we do try and work within keeping with them to try and keep everyone, you know, as happy as we can do, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, you're the designated premises supervisor, aren't you? Yeah, so if you're not there, there's someone that's got, you know, that can take control, yes? That knows all the rules and regulations and stuff.
We have 8 staff, I believe, at the moment with personal licences that are all very experienced. And we've got 3 assistant managers. 3 assistant managers, a general manager. And 2 of the girls that work for me used to actually run Henry's for me part-time. I've got another lady, Wendy, that used to run a nightclub in Dartford for 8 years. We have got a lot of experienced staff. I mean, we try and keep it clean. We keep a strict over 25s policy every evening. We have doormen on every Friday and Saturday night. He's the good one, I'm the bad one. I'm the one always throwing everyone out. I'm the one that no one likes. But that's the way I run it, because it's long-term. We don't want... There's a lot of public houses in Grays. Like I say, I've had the good and the bad. I'm afraid the Queens used to be like the Wild West. I was trying to explain to these two what it used to be like. So this is what we've tried to keep it nice and clean and tidy. Our ethos with this business is we wanted to keep all the families, the young couples, to come down to it. You don't want to be looking over your shoulder, who's there doing this, that and the other. It's nice, it's strict, it's tight. We've got a French-Algerian head chef cooking good food. We're trying to bring something nice to Thurrock.
I may, Chair, just to elaborate what Mr. Johnson has said. In one of the letters it said there's a lady has phoned up on several occasions or occasions because it's been too loud. I think it is worth pointing out that every time and Mr. Johnson has agreed that he has had some phone calls from this lady, probably not every week as she tries to make out, but on each occasion she has phoned up, he has turned the music down. Is that not correct, Mr. Johnson? So he is trying to work with the residents. It's not every night that it becomes a problem. It may be how clear the night is, which way the wind's blowing, I don't know. But on the occasions where the residents have been inconvenienced, he has turned it down when they've made him aware of the fact that they're inconvenienced.
Okay, thank you. Before I throw the questions out for other members, have you any signage in the pub that says you should give due consideration when leaving the pub late at night as to respect the residents?
Yeah, we do place it up. We've had some not insulated, soundproofed fencing put up, and we put them up there. We have had, as they like to take things, certain mementos, but we do keep replacing them at weekends, sort of putting them up. We're trying to get them. We've got a sign writer, Terry Ball, and we haven't actually made permanent. We have had laminated ones, but like I say, it's between the gin glasses and the signs. That's what they like to take home at night. So.
Another concern is the outside area, like one of the residents said they're vomiting and broken glass and stuff like that outside the pub. Do you make sure this area is clean and tidy every day? The way they say it's that it's left there 2 or 3 days at a time.
Since we've been open, on my children's lives, we've had no sick outside that public house. I can categorically say that. The doorman every weekend stand out the side with plastic glasses, taking the glasses off of everyone. Like I say, the type of people that they're insinuating are coming in there are not the people that we're letting in there. I mean, if you can come down on a Friday and Saturday night and speak to the doorman, they will not let up to 40 or 50 people every weekend in. They're not the people that I want in there. So, there was one in there that we had music till 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'll reiterate, we are shut at 12. Everyone can come down there. Everyone is out, and the doors are shut. We don't go past that point. We are licensed till 1:30, and that's what I said to Glenn when we came in. We'll stick to that just to try and give that little bit of, because 12:30 then goes to they'll be in the car park till 1 o'clock, and so we try and keep it that we meet in common ground with people.
Does members have any questions, please?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Stone.
Stuart, you mentioned about the provision of late night refreshment. I look here, you have got a provision in the licence.
Indeed we have, but not what I was pointing out, it would not needed for the outside kitchen area, because that's all closed and shut by 11 o'clock anyway. The late night refreshment runs till 12:30 on the inside of the premises, but we were not seeking to use that on the outside area, because that will be locked up at 11.
Okay, thank you. Also, can you just... You alluded to it earlier, that you tried to contact the environmental health officers about the installation of the sound monitoring system. And can you just go over it again, that they've not been able to come down to actually fix a level?
Well, ever since we started getting to the where we had the noise issue, so Peter Reynolds is the gentleman that's been dealing with it, and I dealt with him over at Henry's, where we had a couple of issues there years and years ago. Very helpful young man. We installed it, and trying to think, preamp speaker. I'm not very technical, but I'll try and get in. So it's all controlled from one thing, so they can't. So the DJs get set a level, which we set. We went by the guidelines that are in place. And as I said to you, if you came down there for a couple of months, me and Glenn were wandering around outside with the thing, trying to make sure it was all in place. Peter's come down a couple of times. He's come and visited us several Friday nights, and I'd like to point out we generally only have music on a Friday night. We have had music some Saturdays, but more regularly it's Friday nights. Any issues he's had brought up, we've dealt with straight away. There's a specialist that works for the council, a sound engineer, that has to get certain equipment, and I understand it's quite a long, drawn-out affair, I've been led to believe, to try and coincide the equipment with this man and when Peter can come down, because Peter works weekends and only works a couple of days in the week. So then obviously it's trying to coincide when we can. It's sort of a bit of a puzzle we're trying to fix. So the last time they came, were supposed to come down, I'd already booked to go on holiday, I'm afraid. So I've put it back to Peter. Peter's supposed to come back, I think, within the next week to 10 days. I mean, it's the last thing. We've set the dial to what we think is correct, but we obviously just need them to come and set it to the level that they, think is correct.
Okay. As far as I'm aware, the pubs had a clean bill of health for years. Then all of a sudden we're getting. I know it's only, you mentioned it's 4 out of possibly 400, was it? But all of a sudden we're getting these complaints about noise. How do you explain that?
Well, like I say, obviously we're putting entertainment on. The previous licensee, Mr. Connor, who held it for 30 years, we used to drink in there for years. And I can categorically say that the music that they used to play in there was a lot louder than what we ever played. You used to have bands in there. I did ask Peter if he could get together any noise complaints that they've had previous to us taking it over, just so we could see where we stood. I'm afraid I haven't had anything come back to me, because I was intrigued to see how no one's ever complained when they've had a 6-piece rock band on a Friday night when we have a DJ. It's sort of, we're trying to work out. Again, as I say, we've put in place, we've insulated the back roof, we've put specialised fencing up, we've put in a sound system and a monitoring system that costs best part of $6,500. We are trying to, as soon as we get a problem, we are trying to rectify it, and I'll be honest with you, as we get the money. We're not a bottomless pit. We are trying to do it. We've put £20,000 away to re-insulate the back area and re-roof it now. That was our next problem that we could see. So we are trying to deal with it. I think Elizabeth has said as well to us, the problem being is because it's new and we're doing different things down there, certain people don't like it, which is the nature of business, I'm afraid. But like I say, we're not in a habit of trying to upset anyone. We are there for a long time. I think we've got a 25-year lease. Hopefully I don't have to work for 25 years in there, but we're going to be there a while, and we're just trying to improve it. We're employing 32 local people. We're paying all our rates and taxes. We are here as a full and proper business.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
I know we're here to talk about the licence, but could I just ask a quick question about the bouncy castle?
Yeah.
Do you have it up regularly every weekend, or is it just charities or bank holidays?
It's just primarily Sundays, and we do have signage up. We was advised a company that we hire it off on a Sunday. Obviously, they have their own independent insurance. We've got an insurance thing, but we were advised by them. They're the ones that do it all the time. They said is to put up a signage stating that parents are supposed to look after or supervise their children, I think is the correct. The problem you always have, I'm afraid, with pubs, parents and children, the children seem to go there, the parents seem to sit here. So we try and rectify it all, but what we are doing, we sort of got the garden 2/3 finished. What our intentions is for next year is to build a proper play area. That's so then the bouncy castles wouldn't be required for next summer. It's really, as a parent to young children, my whole thing is there's one entrance in, there's one entrance out of the pub. They can't get past anyone. if that makes, if you've got little kids and they're whizzing around, they've got to go all the way through the pub to get out to the garden. And what we want to do is have a gated children's play area. That is on our agenda for next spring. So we didn't get to doing it this year because of catch up, the licence. There's been quite a few things that have sort of caught us up and coming along to it. But that is we are very family orientated, and obviously children's safety and security is paramount to us as a parent. We wouldn't do anything obviously to unduly cause any troubles or dangers to children.
Just getting back to that, I understand what you're saying, and my queries you've just answered, so I'm really pleased about that. But it's the noise, it does get it really excitable, so I think that's probably why some of the neighbours aren't very happy. Bouncy castles do get them excited when they're jumping up and down all afternoon. So, but considering you're going to change that next year, that should solve some of the problems, and the neighbours shouldn't be so bad, should they?
Any more questions? Can I just clarify? You said about your music has just been Saturday night entertainment. You said that, yes? Fridays. They said on here that there's been Sundays. So where are we coming from here?
So what we've done, and like I say, I read through the licence and I'm holding my hands up to this. I couldn't see any stipulations. When I had Henry's on a Sunday afternoon, I always used to have a singer, a pianist, something nice while people are sitting garden having lunch and things like that. So that's what we sort of try. We've had in the time we've been open, we've had 4. I only did one every 6 weeks just to see what happened. Again, neighbours and everything else. We had complaints from the last guy. We haven't had one since. So we've purposely stopped it just out of courtesy, And again, we think it's nice, but we appreciate there's people sitting in their garden trying to do the gardening. They don't like Frank Sinatra being sung to them or a bit of Luther Vandross, but that's entirely their protocol because they live next door to us. So we do try and. So we haven't had anything since.
Just one more question before we move on. This floodlight, have we tried to do something to alleviate this, where it's supposed to be shining into neighbours' gardens and even bedrooms, has been mentioned?
We've moved it twice now. We are waiting, I don't want to bat it back to them, but the environmental health to come back to measure it again. I'm sorry, we've moved it twice now, so we're waiting for them. When Peter comes, he's supposed to be coming to measure the distance of I didn't quite understand it, but it's where the light hits the fence or something. It's so it has been moved, yes, in answer to your question, twice.
So realistically, it's imperative that we get this environmental check down to do one or two things with monitoring the decibels of the music and other things. Okay, thank you. Does the licensing officers have any questions? Hold on. Legal.
Just one question. It's just for clarification, really, and I might be probably just misreading things. But on the application, so at 2.3 of the agenda, so that your operating schedule is that there will be no external speakers to be used, whereas condition 13 says that recorded music in the extension to be played through a limited surround sound system. Can you just kind of reconcile those two statements for us?
The condition 13 with the surround sound was an existing condition on the existing licence. It is within the premises. It's not an external speaker. It's not a case of we now have people outside, so we're going to plonk speakers out in the open air. That's not the case. The music, if there is music heard from outside up until 11 o'clock, it will have come from within the premises.
Okay. Does the licensing officers like to ask a question? Thank you.
No, Chair. The couple I had written down have actually been asked and answered by other people. So.
There you go, Liz. Such a good job we've done. So, covered all points. Thank you. Well, no residents. Well, I'd like to ask the licensing officers, would they like to summarise their case, please?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, we haven't been able to hear from the residents today, but obviously you have their written submissions, and we've heard from the applicant and his representative about the issues. Obviously, this application is to do with the sale of alcohol outside, as opposed to the music side of things. Obviously, they do go slightly hand in hand because the increased use of the premises has gone like that. Just to clarify one little bit, the reason why Environmental Health didn't submit a representation is because the application is to do with the outside bar area rather than the provision of the music outside. So based on that, it's for you to determine both sides of the submissions and to make a decision that you feel is fair for everyone.
Thank you very much, Liz. Would the applicant like to summarise their case now, please?
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, and just to reiterate what Elizabeth has said, the application before you today is the introduction of an outside bar, and that is what we're here to discuss. I know we've talked a lot about noise and lights and everything else, but with the best will in the world, you cannot relate that back to being a problem because of an outside bar. We're only here to talk about the change to the licence we're seeking to make. The existing licence, as far as this evening is concerned, is protected because we're not here to talk about the existing licence and how the premises trade currently. It's purely, would the introduction of this outside bar cause any problem to any of the licensing objectives? And my argument to that tonight is no, it wouldn't. It's providing a convenience to people who have already chosen to sit outside, to allow them to get drinks from a smaller outside bar. There's not a full range there. If somebody wants a pint of lager, they'll have to go inside to get it. There's no pumps outside. Sorry, there's?
Sorry, there's only 3 taps outside, a cider, a lager and a bitter. That's it. Very minimal. Some selected soft drinks, ice creams, small cartons for small people, which is most important. And that's it. And fundamentally, it's really a service area to take orders for the outside kitchen that we've built. So it's just really just a walk through, and that it's sort of 50% food, 50% drink it would be. So
that is merely the application. It's just to provide a convenience to people who have already chosen to sit outside. They don't choose to sit outside because there's an outside bar. They choose to sit outside because it's sunny and it's warm, and they will get their drinks. If they have to go in, they'll get them. If they can get them outside, all the better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So has everyone said all they want to say? We're all finished now, yeah? Before we... okay, thank you. Well, the subcommittee will now retire to consider its decision and will be accompanied by the clerk and the legal advisor to the subcommittee. Thank you for waiting for us. Would the legal advisor inform all parties of any legal advice received by the subcommittee during the decision-making process and what decisions we have come to? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so the subcommittee has been advised, obviously, that this is an application to vary a licence and any decision must be based on those matters that are the subject of the application, and that this isn't a review of the premises licence. With that in mind, the decision of the subcommittee has been to grant the application as applied for. In addition to that, the committee would just like to remind the applicants that, of course, there are complaints here as to noise. We fully accept and encourage your attitude to the residents. It appears that you do want to engage with the neighbours and work to kind of build a good community area here. So we'd obviously encourage that going forward, and of course it will be monitored just to ensure that the licensing terms and conditions are adhered to. Thank you.
Thank you. A full decision letter will be sent to you within 5 working days. This notification shall advise you of your right to appeal if you needed to. We'd like to thank everyone for turning up tonight, coming here tonight. Close the meeting. It's now 10 to 8. Thank you very much.